Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2025 Democratic Gubernatorial Town Hall Forum here at the Woodland in Maplewood, New Jersey. Let me see if we can get this to stay. My name is Allison Posner. I am the co-president of SOMA Action. And SOMA Action is one of the co-sponsoring organizations of tonight's very special event. For those who may not know, SOMA Action is a grassroots organization here in South Orange and Maplewood focused on driving progressive change. SOMA Action is part of the Indivisible Network, and we have been taking action since early 2017. If you are wondering tonight if there is a place for you in this movement, there is. Now more than ever, it is imperative that we as community members get involved and get educated in our local and state elections. It is not hyperbole to say that this moment is different. Democracy itself is on the line in our country. We are facing down the threat of fascism every day due to the reckless and often unconstitutional actions of the Trump administration. It is critically important that New Jersey stay blue and elect a Democrat to succeed Governor Phil Murphy this November. We are so incredibly lucky to have 4 candidates with us tonight to share their vision for New Jersey's future. We will be hearing from them and our extraordinary monitor in just a moment. Tonight's forum took many, many hours of planning by many volunteers. And you may have noticed that tonight's event was free to attend. However, it was not free to put on. But this is what it's like to live in Trump's America, right? Everything is more expensive. Especially shocking for us is insurance, which was 4 times more for this event than it has ever been in the past years of SOMA Action organizing. If you would like to make a contribution to tonight's event and the co-sponsoring organizations who made it possible, you have a few options. You can scan one of our QR codes scattered about the building. You can drop any bills you may have or change in a bucket held by my co-president, Erica, in the back there. Or you can go to somaaction.org, and you can make a donation there, which will go to our co-sponsoring committees tonight. And while you're there, please sign up for our newsletter to receive our weekly calls to action. Now, I would like to pass the mic to my friend and partner in producing tonight's forum, Ritu Pancholi.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you to the candidates. My name is Ritu Pancholi. I am the vice chair of the South Orange Democratic Committee, as well as a trustee of SOMA Action. I want to start by thanking our co-organizers, the Maplewood Democratic Committee, the West Orange Democratic Committee, and the Montclair Democratic Committee. Thank you so much for coming together to make this forum possible. It's critical that our local Democratic committees work together across town lines because organizing doesn't just end at the end of our block or in our zip code. We need to organize together. It takes grassroots mobilization across towns to get out the vote, and we know that we are stronger when we're united, when we pool our energy, our ideas, and our voices. And that's how we build real power, and that's how we win. This year, more than ever, all eyes will be on New Jersey in November. The last gubernatorial election was decided by a very narrow margin. And while we pride ourselves in Essex County on going out to vote, in fact, only 32% of eligible voters cast a vote on a ballot in 2021. We can and must do better. So I'm asking you to get involved. Now's not the time to be, the person who's sitting on the couch. Join your local Democratic committee. Join SOMA Action. Help us knock on doors, contribute, and do something. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Maplewood Township Committee member, Dean Daffis, and former mayor of Maplewood. Thank you so much.
Can we give it up for Allison and Ritu one more time? And how about for our great candidates here tonight? Welcome, everybody. I want to also extend my gratitude to all the Democratic committees who came together to make this event possible tonight. As Allison stated, now is the time, if there ever were a time, now is the time for all Democrats to stand together. This election is critical. This election is going to be a referendum on autocracy, a referendum on an America that is no longer the land of opportunity, on an America that is soulless, on empathy itself. So we need everyone to get involved. I'd like to thank some of the other folks who made tonight possible, including the Maplewood Department and Division of Arts and Culture, and all of our facilities folks who helped get you around and navigate you to your seats tonight. I want to thank our public safety professionals, Maplewood PD, Essex County Prosecutor's Office, and the Sheriff's Office. Thank you. And I want to acknowledge my fellow governing body members. We have with us tonight Mayor Nancy Adams, Deputy Mayor Malia Herman, Committee Member Deb Engel, all right, and Committee Member Vic DeLuca. So welcome to Maplewood and to this historic landmark where we're meeting tonight and gathering like this, the Woodland, the former Women's Club. I find it quite fitting that we are doing this in this historic landmark tonight. This is a building that has nearly 100 years of storied history in civic engagement and community-based mutual aid. So here we are this evening, engaging and bringing our collective voices and power together. So thank you. It's great to see the room packed with all of you. We're really, really delighted to make this work here in Maplewood tonight. So with that, I'm going to introduce our amazing moderator. Dedicated, celebrated, award-winning, Peabody Award-winning reporter and journalist for WNYC, senior reporter Nancy Solomon, who is also a Maplewood resident. So we're really, really excited. Nancy, I'm turning it over to you.
Wow. Thank you. That was very nice, Dean. Hello, everybody. Wow, what a turnout. This is fantastic. So I've structured this as a hybrid, folks. We're going to do some debate and we're going to do some forum, because I know that a lot of you want to ask questions, and this is our local moment to have the candidates here. So the second half of the evening we'll have 30 minutes dedicated to questions. So think about what you want to ask and be quick about it when you get there to the mic. So we are going to spend 40 minutes on the debate portion, and I'm going to ask the candidates to try to answer their questions in 30 seconds, but you have 45. But you're going to get a yellow card right there at 30, and then you're going to get the red card at 45. And as much as I hate interrupting people, I'm going to do my best to interrupt you at 45. So we can get to so many of the important issues that we're all facing in the state today. Oh, I see. I need to speak closer to the mic, don't I? So the very first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to introduce yourself and you have a minute and a half to talk about who you are and what's important to you, and we might as well start right here and work towards Congressman Sherrill. So, Sean, take it away.
All right, well, thank you. First thing, I appreciate everybody being here tonight. It's a part of how democracy works, and it's an important piece, so thank you so much. A little bit about me. I'm an immigrant who came to this country as a young boy from Jamaica. My parents lived all over the world and said, we want to go someplace where there's opportunity for you and your brother. And this is where they came, and they came to New Jersey, which I've always been very, very proud of. But right from the start, I understood how hard it was for my parents to get by. My dad would be away for months at a time, sending dollars home, and I just knew there was a sacrifice. And for me, everything I've ever experienced, whether it's going on to become a teacher myself, a high school science teacher, I saw it in the conversations of the parents of the students that I would teach, making tough choices, trying to support their student, but not having the dollars, having the challenges that we've seen in this state. I've seen it as a labor leader, right, when we faced attacks before, from the first bully in this state, Chris Christie, right, who came after us and divided, but who went after folks in a mean way. Oh, sound familiar, but who did it in a way that attacked folks who were caring for other people's children. I've been in the communities fighting for what our communities need. I know what that's like, but it's a tough place to afford. I've been as a mayor and a council person for 12 years in the township of Montclair, where especially through COVID, I was proud to pass the first ever rent control because we saw just costs going up and up and up and families having a tough time being able to afford it. I've seen it now with the storms that happen every other year, the pumping out of the basements, the connection to the rising utility bills, the need to address environmental justice and climate change and the green economy. All of these things are connected. They're all topics I know we're going to talk about today. But I just say this, every single one of these things is personal to me. When I talk about Donald Trump and standing up, it's personal to me. When I talk about making New Jersey more affordable, it's personal to me. Each one of these issues, who's talking about them matters, and my lived experience is why I'm running to be the next governor of New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you. I made a mistake because I kind of thought you would say your name, and I realize now that we should tell people you're Sean Spiller, as if we haven't gotten 45 mailers from you.
If you haven't seen one, there should be one in your mailbox again today, I hope. So just make sure you go and check.
Mayor Baraka, take it away.
My name is Mayor Baraka, the mayor of the state's largest city. I've been a mayor there for 11 years, a council person. I've been an educator in Newark Public Schools for 23 years. I have a relationship with Maplewood and South Orange because my grandmother, who we buried last month, was 99 years old. She had a home in South Orange. Her name was Ruth Richardson. She came here from the Carolinas fleeing Jim Crow and was a garment worker and part of the Garment Workers Union. She lived in South Orange because her husband, my grandfather, was a teamster, and his truck tipped over one day, and he became paralyzed. And because he was paralyzed, he got a whole bunch of money, and that money landed him the opportunity to buy a house in South Orange, you know, kind of like a raisin in the sun. So we were able to go there all of the time and eat Thanksgiving dinner. A whole lot of us got to see the dichotomy of Essex County, the dichotomy of this state, the inequity and the beauty of the state at the same time. Many of us believe and understand that America is a work in progress, that it's always been a work in progress, that it's been a work in progress from slavery to freedom to women's rights to housing rights, all the things we fight for. And sometimes we paused and sometimes we didn't do much, but we've always been moving forward. Now things are changing. We're beginning to move backward, and people are getting a little excited and scared and fearful. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm scared as well. But I pray every night that my fear doesn't turn me into a coward, that I'm able to stand on the things that I believe, that my democratic values will lead me. And I'm not here saying things simply to encourage you to vote for me because there is an election. I honestly believe that we need to do something bold, something different, something imaginative, something that you haven't done. And if you're doing what's comfortable right now, then what you're doing is wrong. You should be doing something that makes you feel uncomfortable, that makes you feel unsteady, that makes you feel the tension of the moment. You should be scared, but you should act anyway and do something bold. And I'm gonna tell you the boldest thing you can do is June 10th, make sure Baraka is the governor, the Democratic nominee in the state of New Jersey.
Stephen Fulop, Mayor of Jersey City. Let me start by saying thank you to SOMA. I'll take a couple seconds just to acknowledge the fact that you've been at the forefront of the progressive agenda for New Jersey. You were bold enough to organize in the early administration of the first Donald Trump, and you were bold enough to stand alone with Andy Kim when nobody would do it, and you've been bold enough every step of the way to set the stage for what's next in New Jersey. My name is... I come from a family of immigrants. My family's Holocaust survivors. They immigrated here after most of my family died in the gas chambers. They settled in Edison, New Jersey, and my father had a deli in Newark. I proudly say that I know more about the deli business than any gubernatorial candidate in the history of America, and maybe that's my fallback position. But in all joking aside, I graduated college, I got a job at a prestigious place, maybe the most prestigious investment bank, and after being there 2 years on 9/11, everybody here had a 9/11 moment, I decided to leave and enlist in the Marine Corps. And I viewed it as a partial payment for citizenship. I viewed it really as a debt owed. In 2013, I was elected mayor of Jersey City against the entire political machine on a candidacy very much like this one is today, grassroots-oriented, substantive on policy. And Jersey City has been one of the best Renaissance stories in the entire country. We've been the state leader on almost every single metric, and it doesn't happen by accident. When people say that, of course, Jersey City would change, it's 3 miles from New York City, I always say the same thing. I say it's been 3 miles from New York City for 250 years. The reality is our campaign is different because it's about 3 things in detail. The first thing is really about talking about the corruption tax that you all pay in New Jersey. It is wrong, and how do we change that? The second thing is being more detailed on policy and substantive than any campaign, Democrat or Republican. And the third thing is when we talk about Donald Trump and Musk, not talking about platitudes of what we possibly will do and we're going to fight just to say something, concrete steps of actions I will take to protect New Jersey and push back. So thank you for coming out today. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, hi, my name is Mikie Sherrill, and it is wonderful to be here tonight. You know, the first event I attended when I had South Orange and Maplewood in my district was a Democracy Strikes Back event with Tom Malinowski. And I thought it was appropriate then, and I think the name is even more appropriate tonight as we sit here. And I've always fought hard for democracy and for this country. I took my first oath to the Constitution when I was a teenager. I served as a Navy helicopter pilot, as a Russian policy officer, as an outreach and reentry coordinator, as a federal prosecutor, and now I serve in Congress. And you know, when I think about what it's going to take, I think about the fact that I was taught in the military that you run to the fight. That's what I've always done. So when I was told in 2018 that I could never win the 11th District of New Jersey, when Michael Moore ran a ficus tree against Rodney Frelinghuysen to prove that it didn't matter, ficus tree Democrat, nobody could win it, I knew something different was going on. And that's why I ran for Congress. And that's why, with the work of so many people on the ground, we built the largest red to blue swing in the entire nation. And then I kept going. And when I got into Congress, I was cold. I couldn't get anything done. Congress was broken. And yet in only my second term, I became the most effective member from the New Jersey delegation. Again and again and again, working hard for people. And now I think the most important role we have here in New Jersey is the governor of New Jersey. So we can fight back against what's going on in Washington, build the houses we need, drive down utility costs with clean power, invest in our broken healthcare system, and reinvest in the future of this state. So that's why I'm running for governor. And I am so impressed with all of you here today who want to take part in this election. Thank you.
Okay, let's get this party started. So affordability, as we all know, is a big issue in this campaign. It's a big issue in the country. This is one of the most expensive places to live in the country. And let's start with this. My property taxes are too damn high. So traditionally, it's been Republicans who fight about property taxes and talk about them and want to lower them. And I'm curious if that's changing. And so for the very first thing, what I'd like to see is, this is a Democratic crowd, do you think that the way property taxes are, do you want property taxes to go down? Do you think that the way the process works, the way your properties are assessed, the inequities from house to house to house, do you think the system is problematic and you want it changed? Or is this an issue that is important to you or not? Raise your hand if it's important. Okay, so it is changing. Democrats care about high taxes. In my younger years, that wasn't true. So, Governor Murphy created the anchor rebate. The question for all of you in 30 seconds is whether you think a rebate is the way to provide property tax relief, and if not, what would you do differently? Let's start on the other end, Congressman Sherrill.
Well, Nancy, if you think Democrats don't care about property taxes, you haven't been following my campaigns like I thought you were. Because I have been fighting property taxes here in New Jersey since I got into office with the state and local tax deduction cap, and now here fighting to get better shared services so we can drive those costs down. I think that is the place you start. Making sure that with all of our municipalities that we are pushing in so we can have shared services, whether it's mechanics on our firefighting engines or whether it is sharing our municipal court system or even the administration of some of our schools. We have got to do better and spend more efficiently. We also have to make sure that we are driving down costs in general in this state. We have to build more homes if we are going to drive down mortgages and rental costs. We have to get more clean power to the grid if we're going to drive down utility costs. And we have got to address our broken healthcare system to drive down medical costs. Thanks.
Mayor Fulop.
30 seconds is tough, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's tough. Let me start with, I think property taxes is problematic. It's house by house. You need to change the reval process. I know that from being a mayor, how that works, but there's a couple things, broadly speaking, that we need to address. I touched broadly on the corruption tax that you pay in New Jersey. You pay because you have county chair people that disproportionately control the system, that also work for Horizon and PSE&G, and that is an embedded cost in the system. Secondly, the school funding formula needs to change. It needs to be addressed because it directly impacts your property taxes, and you need a governor that is bold enough to do that. Third, the revenue side of the conversation is really problematic. You need to address the property tax brackets because a millionaire's tax from 20 years ago is not a millionaire's tax today. You need to really think about that. The vacant farm tax, open space that people like Donald Trump don't pay $250,000 because they have 3 goats, or you could have 2 beehives and not pay taxes, needs to be revisited. It's $500 million directly to your bottom line.
Okay,
a lot of things that we can do important to address property taxes.
I would say that giving people a rebate without reducing the cost is a gimmick. Because the dollar becomes minimized if you keep giving people money, but the costs keep going up, right? So the rebate is really a trick, a ruse. The reality is we need to lower the costs. We need to lower healthcare costs, and we need to lower the costs for schools. Those are the 2 things that drive your property taxes, school and healthcare costs. Do reference-based pricing. We need to be paying at least 150% above Medicare. Right now we're paying 200 to 300% above that. If we did that, we would save over $1 billion in 2 years for our state. If we had unified school districts, we have too many school districts, we have more school districts than we have cities. If we unify the school district, we lower people's taxes and share the services along those lines. And the tax brackets are upside down. We have to make them right side up. There are people who make millions of dollars who pay less in property tax than you pay if you make $100,000 and $150,000, period.
Look, when I'm talking to folks around the state, they talk about how do you make things more affordable, and that means keeping more money in your pocket. That's why I look at the big cost drivers, right? It is about making sure, we keep down the cost of rising healthcare costs. It is about making sure housing costs are more affordable, both first-time home buying and also rents. It's about the quality of early education and childcare that costs families $19,000. And it's the energy costs that we pay. All of these things keep more money in your pockets when we can keep them down. But when we talk about property taxes specifically, I know this as a mayor. The only way you keep it down is if you invest as a state in your priorities. And for far too long, we get these unfunded mandates. And then the only way a mayor or a council can do anything to address it is to raise property taxes. As governor, I'll invest in our priorities, invest in the things that we say we're committed to, like housing, healthcare, quality early education, childcare, the environment, and certainly the green economy. Those investments will keep our property taxes down so we don't keep leaving it to each municipality to have to raise these dollars.
Thank you. So a couple of you mentioned housing prices and rent as a major component of the high cost of living in New Jersey. Last year, Governor Murphy signed a new law to overhaul towns' affordable housing obligations. How would you implement that law, and what other actions would you take to address high rents and high home prices? Let's start with you, Mayor Baraka, and we'll move that way and then circle back.
First, there needs to be a statewide rent moratorium. Stop the increasing of rent for at least 2 or 3 years. It takes 18 months to build housing. We have to build at least 30,000 units of housing a year. Right now, we're building 3,000 to 5,000 units. You have to turn it into a public works project. You invest money by using either your pension or the tax credits we use and put it in a fund and let investors invest in that fund and begin to create a public works project across the state. We begin to build housing next to transit immediately. We start there. The state should lead this process and not leave it in the hands of municipalities. We also check all of the investment bankers that are buying houses as LLCs, buying 3 or 4 or 5, 20, 30 houses at one time, artificially driving the costs up in our market. We stop that and we give first right of refusal to community-based developers so that they could develop low-income housing or affordable housing without the same return on investment that private investors need.
Okay, thank you. And Mayor, if you move your mic a little closer, I think it'll cut down on some of the feedback we're getting. Mayor Baraka, move the mic a little closer to you. Okay. Everybody should do that, and because we're getting some feedback. Okay, sorry. Mayor Fulop.
I agree on the private equity front, and I'll go a step further. The algorithms that set rent leveling prices need to be banned entirely. What I'm going to also tell you is that Trenton needs to take the lead as it relates to transit-oriented development. Nobody has built more than Jersey City has. How the EDA incentivizes the development needs to change dramatically. Places like Jersey City, places like Hoboken don't participate in the numbers as it relates to the entire state quotas as it relates to affordability. And Trenton needs to be a partner incentivizing those municipalities that are partnering and building housing. Today, the entire conversation is co-opted by the NIMBYs because there's no transparency to what you are doing as a mayor. And Trenton needs to lead and say, this is where your municipality is fulfilling their obligation or not fulfilling their obligation, and then give dollars directly, whether it's infrastructure, school funding, tied to people that are cooperating. Leadership starts at the front from the governors. It can't be platitudes. They have to execute with using the dollars that Trenton has as leverage to help mayors build.
So this is the number one thing I hear about from people, whether it's the woman who's paying 70% of her income in rental prices, which is never going to allow her to get ahead, the retired woman who had to go back to work because she couldn't afford her rent, or the young couple who just can't get into a house and lost bid after bid after bid. And that's why we've got to build more. We have a supply problem. We have the second worst supply in the nation right now. We have got to build more homes. So how do we do that? We've got to give incentives for people to remediate and repurpose commercial properties. We have to make sure that we have first-time home buyer programs so they can help with that down payment. And then we also have to fix our permitting and regulatory process. Right now it can take up to 4 years to get to building homes. That it costs entirely too much as you wait to do it, compared with Texas, which has 4 days on some of their permitting. So those are the 3 things I do to get building right away.
Yeah, thank you. So,
thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, look, it's not just about building more, though, right? I've seen it. In Montclair, I'm really proud to pass the first ever rent control law in Montclair because of rising prices. But when you just keep building it, they're building high-end luxury units that we can't afford. So I'm happy to hear others talking about it now, but I've been saying from the start, my first home in Montclair was a 2-family home. It took me 2 years to be able to afford it. You cannot get that home right now because they're getting bid and bought up by LLCs, venture capitalists, Wall Street. They're jacking up the rents when they get it, or if we have to bid against it, it's raising our mortgage rates. I propose that we have a period where we, the people, have the chance to buy homes first, where we're not competing against them. Let's make the banks put those houses they're sitting on back on the market instead of dripping them back on to keep prices high. On the rental side, let's not leave it to developers to build 400 high-end units with 20 that are affordable. As governor, I will invest so we build 50, 20 that are affordable, 20 for seniors, 10 for workforce housing, different layers that we make sure housing is more affordable, because that's our job as government. Make it more affordable for folks like us.
Thank you. So the state budget spends more than it takes in. Budget geeks call that a structural deficit. And this year, because all the COVID relief money is gone, we're going to see cuts to services. The think tank New Jersey Policy Perspective is recommending an overhaul of the New Jersey tax system, most notably by creating 3 new tax brackets and raising the rates on those who make, in those brackets, more than $2 million, more than $5 million, and more than $10 million. Would each of you, please, one by one, tell me whether you would support any proposal to raise taxes on the super wealthy in New Jersey? Let's start with Mayor Fulop, please.
Yes, it's one of the first things I led with regards to the affordability conversation. I think readdressing taxes is imperative. I talked about the farmland tax, which is $500 million. I talk often about the transportation tax, which is funds New Jersey Transit. As a mayor, I understand that I have political capital in those first 60 or 90 days that you will never have again for the next 3.5 years. If you are going to fix New Jersey, you need to be bold in those first couple months, willing to raise revenue and do the tough things on tough conversations. It's the only way to fix it, and the short answer is yes, I would be supportive of all that.
I'm happy to look at proposals to raise taxes on the super rich, but I don't think that should let us off the hook for driving down costs for people. And we have got to do that with affordability. We have a problem, as I've laid out, with housing. We have utility costs going up because PJM has refused to add some of our cheap, clean power into the grid. We have a healthcare crisis in this state where sometimes getting sick is a one-way ticket from the middle class into poverty. So all of this has got to be addressed in the vision that we have to drive a different state here, a different form of government here than everything we see coming from Washington, D.C.
Mr. Spiller.
Folks, we've got to address the income inequality that continues to grow here, that we're all then suffering from as we're fighting over the scraps that are left for us. Absolutely, we have to look at a more fair tax policy. And I've said from the start, as we're looking at Donald Trump right now, who's taken $1.1 billion out of our schools, who's then going after Medicaid and Medicare and affecting our seniors and our youth, we see the dollars they're pulling out of voting unless we start checking IDs and all these other things. We are losing massive dollars. I'm saying we're going to have to revamp our tax structure here in New Jersey to get every single one of those dollars that Donald Trump and his puppet master Elon Musk are pulling out of our pockets and our programs. We need to go after those very dollars and bring them back here in New Jersey through our tax code. That's how we support the programs and the services that New Jersey residents need. Yes, it's about making things more affordable through the actions, as I've done in designing healthcare plans and making sure we've got rents that are affordable, all the things I've mentioned. But we cannot make up for the losses we're going to see under Donald Trump. We're going to have to make sure the wealthy and the ultra-rich corporations are paying their fair share.
Thank you.
So the short answer is yes. In fact, we've adopted the Policy Perspectives recommendations in our platform. What we also need to understand is that since when Chris Christie was the governor, he gave $15 billion over the last years after him to the super wealthy in his state. Those tax cuts were never repealed. They were never brought back and never reinstated. And under Democrats left it there. Democratic legislators, Democratic governors never changed that. And so now we have a financial crisis. We need to pull that money back and put it back in our budget. That's number one. And we need to turn, like we said earlier, turn the tax code upside down, or I should say right side up, to make sure that it's even. If we went to a restaurant and you left the restaurant and you left me with the bill, they're not going to lower the bill for me. They're going to make me pay your portion of the bill. And that's what's happening. They ran out on the bill, and middle-class New Jerseyans or Americans are paying that bill at the expense of the super wealthy. We can't subsidize them any longer.
Thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about racial disparities in New Jersey. There was a study by New Jersey Institute for Social Justice that found that The black-white wealth gap has doubled since 2020. The median household wealth for white families in New Jersey is $662,000. And in Black and Latino New Jersey, the median household wealth is just under $20,000. That's a huge $640,000 wealth gap. What kind of programs would you create as governor to close this gap?
I don't think we can be surprised at that when we see the disparities in education in this state, and we see the racial segregation in this state. That is why we have to push in better educational programs. That's high-intensity tutoring, especially making sure at the third grade level, that is where we have to have our children reading by third grade. Right now, in some cities, only about 36% of the children are reading at the correct level at third grade. We have to make sure there's access, because if you can't read, you're not going to be doing math, you're not going to be doing science. You have to do better there. And again, we need to push into building houses, the first-time homeowner buyer programs, because if we want to create generational wealth in the state, we need to get people into homeownership. The disparities between white homeownership and black homeownership is about 70 to less than 40%, 70% for white families, less than 40% for black families. So if we want to create generational wealth, and if we want to ensure all of our kids have opportunity, that's where we push in.
Well, look, I'll say this, and quite frankly, I'll speak to it as a black man in America. I find it troubling when I sometimes hear, well, listen, part of it is we've got to have you be better educated, right? I don't agree with it, right? We need to change systems right here in this state. When we talk about creating new things, let's work on the things we have right now. Because right now, if you're a small business owner and if you're black and minority or women-owned, you're excluded from the process because all of the metrics we use favor white men and their businesses. If we're talking about trying to buy that first home, talk about the banks. Well, the mortgage rates that they lend to black folks are higher than they are to others. Let's talk about that and let's fix that system, right? If we're talking about any one of these systems, they are designed right now to get us exactly what we've gotten. So if we're not going to change the systems, don't add more, don't keep doing more of the same. We've got to look at what's happening now and say, blow them up, change them, let's make sure they don't disadvantage and favor certain over others. That's how we make the changes to make folks have an opportunity at wealth and future wealth.
Hell, I don't know if Donald Trump can read. He got a whole bunch of houses. But at the end of the day, the things that drive the wealth gap, let's take Essex County. Essex County has about 20,000 additional black families than white families in Essex County. But white families in Essex County own more homes than black and brown families put together in this county. That's just a fact. So home ownership is what's driving the wealth gap. The other thing that's driving the wealth gap is investment in small businesses. Well, the state invests less than 1% of its procurement dollars in black, brown, and women businesses. Let's look at Essex County. Essex County invests less than 0.5% in businesses, black, brown, and women businesses in this county, which means that Essex County's procurement process is worse than the state of New Jersey. That's a problem. This is why we have a growing wealth gap in a state that is crying, that is the most democratic state, the bluest state. We have not been able to fix these inequities because we have not had the will nor the education to do that. Those in power have not been educated themselves on the problem enough to be able to fix the problem, so here we are.
Thank
you. I think there's two answers to this. I think there's a near-term way to address it, and I think we need to be thinking about it long-term in a more comprehensive way. The near term, clearly there's a problem with the set-asides and how we procure business as it relates to minority businesses. We need more integration, more hand-holding, more education in order to get people involved in the business side, and we need more flexibility for them from the bidding standpoint because they don't have the bonding and the bandwidth in order to compete with some of the larger businesses. You need to be forcing directors and leadership to change their habits so they get multiple bids. Those are all things that you need to be doing in the short term. Long term, Governor Murphy has missed the opportunity around addressing segregation in housing and segregation in schools. He pushed it to the courts instead of willingness to address it. In order to address inequality in New Jersey, you need to address the segregation issue that is a clear as day in New Jersey. And as governor, I outline it in everything I do. We will be bold and forward in making sure that that's confronted.
Well, that's a perfect segue to the next part of the question, which is about segregation. We're segregated by community, and that means the schools are segregated. And as it was brought up, we have a lawsuit to stop that segregation, and it's winding its way through the courts, and the state is fighting it. So if elected, what would you do to integrate schools in New Jersey? Let's come back to you, Mr. Spiller.
Yeah, well, first, I think it's important to note, right, we do have the most segregated communities, right, and we've got to address that with housing, right, so housing has got to be part of the conversation. That's why I talk about making sure we've got housing that's affordable in every single community. But with regard to our schools, we need to do things like we've done in Montclair, where every school is a magnet school that I, as a parent, have to rank and decide where to go, but the school district looks and makes sure they look at a number of factors to ensure that all of our schools are diverse. Now, it means a little bit more cost in terms of busing and getting kids everywhere, but that's where you start, and I wouldn't wait for a court order to do it, right? In many communities, like Jersey City is a good example. It's one of the most segregated communities in the community within the school system. Make the school choice options in that community so you desegregate, and then use the school funding formula to incentivize communities around it to open up the seats, to allow kids from nearby, so busing isn't too far, to be able to go, and again, you are now diversifying that student population and the resources that the parents and others bring. That's how we continue to grow this voluntarily, and I certainly, as governor, would not wait for a court to demand to take action. That's the action I would take day one.
So I would say that definitely we need to move beyond the court, and Murphy missed an opportunity to make history here in the state of New Jersey. Obviously, we should combine school districts. I think that is an answer that we can begin moving on immediately. I think we revised the school funding formula to give bonuses to schools that are allowed for diversity in their school, that figure out a way to get more students in those seats from surrounding communities. We have to get rid of the zip code law that makes people an illegal person if they send their kids to schools outside of the zip code they live in. Need to get rid of that immediately. I honestly don't think busing is the answer because, you know, it's going to be difficult, and 50% of the people in our city of Newark don't own a car, and busing is going to be hard. It's going to leave a couple of people behind, and so it's important for us to change the makeup of the schools and bring schools together. You need to have magnet schools on a county level that allow kids to go from all over the place, but also figure out a way to allow principals to make kids get in those seats that don't necessarily live in the school district.
Thank you.
I agree with all of that around county schools and school funding formula, and that's how you address the segregation. I think the bigger issue around housing is how do you confront home rule, where you have mayors that push back against the opportunity or the obligation to build housing that's integrated. We've outlined a very clear plan that is unique to anyone on how Trenton will have leverage over those smaller municipalities to force them into zoning changes and obligations that they're unwilling to do today. Secondly, I think we should be thinking about transportation as intertwined with opportunity around desegregation. You need to build the infrastructure and properly invest in New Jersey Transit so that the housing and the schools have opportunities that are intertwined with mobility. And we have the most... Cut off, okay. We have the most comprehensive plan around transportation by far. It's something I'm passionate about, and I believe it's intertwined closely with housing, education, desegregation.
Well, we have some of the most segregated schools in the nation because we have some of the most segregated neighborhoods in the nation. And that's what we have to remedy. And that's why I have really focused on building more houses, driving down the cost of housing, and then having first-time homeowner support so that we can have access to home buyers for across our state. We also, though, I do agree with the idea that we can have county-based magnet schools, whether they're occupational schools, STEM schools, et cetera. This can both add to the ability to integrate our school system, but at the same time, taking some of the burden off the locality so you can drive down some of the property taxes as well in the different towns.
Thank you. So this past year, we saw the end of the line. That's the way election ballots give a leg up to candidates endorsed by the party machines. And this is a two-part question. Beyond that change, the end of the county line, Do you think New Jersey government at its highest levels, I'm not talking about local towns, but at the highest levels of New Jersey government, do you think it's corrupt? And if so, what would you reform? And please address specifically what you think about the proper role of the party organizations. Are they machines that undermine democracy and wield too much political influence? Or are they legitimate ways to organize political leadership in the party? I mean, that is the argument on both sides of them. I realize, can we do a minute on this? Because I think it's kind of complicated. Okay. Who are we starting with? Mayor Baraka.
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer the latter part first.
Sure.
I participated in the conventions across the state of New Jersey because I wanted to find out how they were going to go and have an opportunity to talk to people that I would have probably been excluded from 4 years ago. I would say that process was wildly different up and down the state of New Jersey. Some of it was more democratic than others, right? Some folks gave you access to committee folks. They gave you phone numbers. They did it honestly. They allowed you to speak to people at the same time. Frankly, some of the things, they allowed people to vote while you were speaking. They were voting while you were talking, or they voted before you spoke, or they didn't give you access to the people. All kinds of wild and strange things were happening because people were trying to hold on to the bit of power that they had. And I think that whole process should be uniform across the state for both sides of the party, whether it's Democrat or Republican, or whoever has a convention, it should be that way. I also think that we should honor what the judge's decision was. I think what the state legislature did was close to the decision, but not the actual decision, that people are trying to hold on to vestiges of power without releasing democracy to many people. We can't be the Democratic Party and refuse to participate in democracy.
And do you think that New Jersey is corrupt at the highest levels of government, Mayor Baraka?
Do I think it's corrupt?
Yeah.
I think some people are corrupt, yes, absolutely. I think that the system is designed to favor those who are wealthy, designed to favor those who are connected, designed to favor those who are chosen, and not the majority of the people in this state. That's what makes it corrupt. The system makes it corrupt, and people who protect that system become corrupted.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Fulop.
I touched earlier on the corruption tax, and I'm going to say, yes, the system is corrupt. When you have a state party chairman that acts as a lobbyist on behalf of Horizon, PSE&G hospitals, it speaks to the fact that the party is corrupt. It's misguided. It's wrong. Now let me go a step further. It still needs to change. How do you change it? We are supporting primaries throughout New Jersey because primaries create better candidates, better policy, more accountability to the voters. We stand alone in pushing that because it's good government giving people a choice. Actually here as well in this district. Number two, as governor, I'm unapologetic. I will push for ranked choice voting. It is the natural next progression in how this should work. That doesn't count as time. I'm kidding around.
Is that the full minute we're going to?
It's okay. I'm joking. And then look, the governor needs to change transparency. Oprah needs to be rolled back to what it was before. The election transparency law needs to be rolled back for what it is. This June primary is a fundamental question on what these county parties are about. And my bet is that they are lethargic and stale and lazy because of the county line. And we are going to show that on June 10th.
So the last question first, because it's so easy. Yes, we just had a senator sent to jail for taking gold bars. So yes, there is corruption at the very top levels of our government here in New Jersey. And then as far as where we need to go, we need to do things like same-day voter registration, making sure that we have computer-generated picks for the placement on the ballot and the other things that were suggested. And then going forward, what do the conventions mean? I think we're all trying to figure that out now. And I would agree, each convention felt very different. There were some, I participated in every single one. And there were some I went to knowing I would lose. I did, yes, tell the people down in South Jersey that I only ate Taylor ham. In all frankness, I knew I was going to lose that convention anyway, but nevertheless. But you know, the best conventions were a group of people, and you'd go into a room much like this one, people that were some of the most dedicated people in the county, some of the people that were going to phone bank, and they were going to knock doors, and they were going to get the vote by mails out, and they were going to talk to their friends about how important this election was. And it can be, when done right, a great organizing principle for the Democratic Party to, in February, get a group of people to start caring about your election when many people don't even realize we have one coming up. And so that can be really great momentum. At their worst, they're not transparent. They make people doubt their democracy, and they make people question who's actually making the decisions. So I think we can do great conventions here. I think it's important for our Democratic Party to be strong and to get people out and to get people engaged. But we do see different systems across the state right now.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, oh, I'm sorry. You're too close.
So, yeah. So I'll say this. Look, I don't think people really question how decisions are made. I think everyone in this room knows exactly how decisions are made and who's making them. And I think that's part of the problem. When we see hundreds of thousands of Democrats stay home in the last presidential, and we wonder why. When we see what we call apathy, right? When we know the democratic process is supposed to work by us going out, having individual conversations with folks around us, right? As a committee person, right? Bringing that back, finding the candidate who matches that. That's not what we've seen. I participated in all of these conventions as well, where folks have already decided who they're going with. The bosses have already said who they're supporting, right? But at the end of the day, the simple answer is this: follow the money. Follow the money, because the reason the political bosses, the politically powerful, others want these positions, want to keep control, is to control the dollars that go with it, the positions that they appoint, the patronage that it entails, all of the things that hurt each and every one of us. And at the end of the day, we see it ties back to how campaigns are funded, right? When you see the political bosses that have to give the dollars, when you see the very rich developers that fund, when you see the Wall Street elite that give the dollars, we all then are surprised by the gaps in income, or we're surprised that we don't get a shot. The system is rigged against us. And that's why I'm running for governor, because this is our chance, with what Andy Kim did and others, opening that door to break it wide open and say, finally, let's have somebody who's representing us with every single decision that I make. This is that rare opportunity. This is that chance. And that's why I'm running.
Thank you. So let's talk about electability, because I know that that's a huge concern people have. New Jersey has more Democrats than Republicans, but there are almost as many independent voters as there are Democrats, and that's why any statewide election can go either way, and that's how we got 8 years of Chris Christie. During this statewide primary, there's often a debate among Democrats, with one side saying it's important, it's crucial to elect a candidate who can beat the Republicans in the fall. And then the other side argues that this is the moment, finally the moment has come, when we can elect a more progressive and leftist candidate. And that is the candidate who represents our hearts and who will do everything that we want them to do. And now is the time to double down and go for that person. So here we are in that moment. And I bet we could split up the two sides, the room could split in half. So tell me, which candidate are you? Are you the person who can beat the Republican in November? Or are you the progressive who's going to fight for all the progressive values that the Democrats want? And you can, if you want to try to get away with saying you're both, fine, but I want receipts. You need to give me facts to back up your claim. Like, what makes you the person who can do both? Where are we starting? With Mayor Fulop, please.
I think it's most important to be bold, have a vision, be clear, that you can articulate to the public on what you're going to do. You need to be able to speak to independents and Republicans because they are part of the conversation. You need to amplify Democrats with a clear vision, but you need to be able to go into uncomfortable rooms and convince people around transgender identity, around women's reproductive rights, around the Immigrant Trust Act, on why those make sense for everybody. If you are not able to do that and unwilling to do that, you are not going to win. I will tell you that a lot of these endorsements are are intertwined with relationships, and I'm sure everybody here knows that. The most important one to me is the College Democrats of America and the College Democrats of New Jersey, because they are not tainted. They don't work for anybody. They're not biased. We all competed for them. They endorsed me because we were clear on how it will impact them in the future. I think I am best situated to be competitive in November and win the election in November by a large margin.
So I'm sort of from the school of politics of tell people what you're going to do, go do it, and tell people you've done it. And I think effective leadership has been really critically important in these times when so many people have lost faith in government to do anything. So I'm the candidate up here. I'm the only one who's actually run against a Republican. We know that's going to be a key part of this race because in the fall, that'll be the first time in 50 years that as Democrats we've gotten a third term of a Democratic governor. I've also built out the broadest coalitions. I've brought out about 235,000 people in a voting year. I've grown people's turnout throughout my district. Combined, this group has brought out about 60,000 votes combined. So it's just a different type of campaign you run, and I've done that by bringing out grassroots progressives, by bringing out labor, by bringing out those people that have lost faith in the Democratic Party, by then turning to the general and bringing out the swing, and then even getting about a quarter of moderate Republicans, because I believe that when you go to them and tell them about what you're going to do and tell them why you're standing against Donald Trump and unelected billionaire Elon Musk and how it's harming them, that they understand why this country's in peril and why they need to vote Democrat this time.
Look, I'll say this. I do think this is our chance to do things differently. Because when you hear all that, you can't do it while you've taken money from Elon Musk, right? There is a challenge that we are all facing right now. When I knock on doors, people say, Sean, what's the difference? What's the difference between any of you? And it's because we haven't shown boldly that when we get elected, this is who we're fighting for. Well, let me tell you, this is who I've been fighting for all my life as a labor leader. Yes, knock those doors, organize, mobilize, know how to win elections, right? Been elected, mayor, councilperson, 12 years, know how to win those elections. But then it's about making a difference in people's lives. And right now, what we get is either a party that is all bought in and sold out to the ultra-rich and the wealthy corporations, or we got a party that's partially sold out. We need to get somebody that's fighting for what we need each and every day. And that's what this election is about. When I talk about affordability with housing, when I talk about affordability with childcare, early education, when I talk about it with rising energy costs and the environment, when I talk about these issues, they're not conservative, they're not liberal, they're not Democrat, they're not Republican. They're what we need in this state, and we finally need somebody who's fighting for us, not beholden to the dollars that help get them elected, which stop us from doing something about every single one of these issues every single time. That's why this is the time for change.
So let me tell you, if I thought that policies and plans by themselves would win an election, then Elizabeth Warren would be on her second term, and Donald Trump wouldn't be the president of the United States. People need inspiration and hope. They need to realize that when you're going to fight for them, and that all of our issues are the same across zip code, across nationality, across where we live. They have to believe that. They have to believe and trust that you're going to make that happen. They have to. The kids in your house that you left there when you went to go vote need to tie their shoes and sneakers up and say, "Mom, wait for me. I'm coming with you." Now, who can inspire and give those people the reason to come out of their houses and go vote? And I'm going to tell you something else. I went to an event with Chuck Schumer. He spoke. They asked him, how are we going to keep or maintain the Senate? He said increase the black vote by 3 percentage points in Alabama, in Georgia. But that couldn't happen. It didn't happen in Michigan, and it didn't happen in New Jersey. We need to increase the votes of the people who we've been overlooking, black and brown folks, and I can get those people out to vote. I know it, and guess what? You know it too. Do something that you know should happen, something different. Raz Baraka, June 10th.
We already got you, Mayor Fulop, right? I keep losing track. Okay, so I have some individual questions, one question for each of you, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. I've got a lot of questions I had to ditch, so I hope the audience is going to pick it up, because I wanted to find out how you're going to fight Trump. I wanted to hear about transgender rights, and I wanted to talk about New Jersey Transit, so ask those questions. Let me start with you, Mr. Spiller. Questions have been raised about your use of teacher union money, $40 million of it, to support your candidacy. We see all the flyers and billboards that the money buys, but what evidence can you provide us to show that the actual rank and file teachers want you to spend their union dues on your candidacy?
You know, I smile when I hear a question like this, right? Because every single person, including everyone up here, happily took NJEA dollars, right, when they've run for offices before and we've supported. We've been part of a system where we understand that the only way the average folk can get some kind of power or say is to collectively come together to raise our voices, use our dollars, right, voluntarily join a union, which I support, obviously, to be able to speak. And I've been proud to be out there knocking doors for all these candidates, helping to fund all these candidates when they ran for their races. But the only time folks raise a question is when they say, whoa, an actual educator wants to run to be governor? Why would you want to do that? Because we want somebody who's fighting for the middle class right now. No, I get it, but listen, we need somebody right now who continues to fight for all of us in the middle class, right? Somebody who is not saying we're just going to hand dollars to others and hope they do the right thing, because for too long we've seen the result. I think you have too. For too long we see that there is just a focus on the rich, the wealthy, and not us. So I say this, we are the most little d democratic organization there is as NJEA. I'm proud to unanimously have gotten the endorsement and support. I'm proud to unanimously, over 150 representatives, come together to say we want to put these dollars in, because it is about focusing on a future for all of us in the middle class, not leaving it up to donors, funding folks for election, wealthy folks who control this country. This is the chance to change that right now. That's why I'm running.
Well, let me ask a follow-up. What do you say to people who are critical of the funding that you're getting and say that it's a conflict of interest, that you're the president of the union and it's spending money on something that directly benefits you?
Well, let me say this. I don't actually even understand the question in this sense. We are totally fine when Wall Street has folks from Goldman Sachs running for governor, and we never say, what's the problem? What's going on here? We're fine when we see the developers funding candidates and they say, no problem. The only time we have an issue is when there's somebody from the working class who's part of a group who say, hey, listen, we are pooling our dollars to fund somebody we know has been fighting for the middle class for all the time we've known him. That's a good thing. And folks, if we talk about, and we want to talk about changing systems, we can't change systems if we then go, well, listen, guys, we got to get the money from where you always get it. Because I can tell you right now, I could raise millions of dollars the same way others can raise it, but it means calling millionaires. Because every time I make that phone call to a middle-class person, that $20, $25, $30 they can give, that's what they can afford, but it's an investment to change a system that needs changing. And that's what this moment is about right now.
Thank you. Congresswoman Sherrill, I know we've already talked about the political machines a little bit, but I think that what I hear from people, progressive Democrats, is that their biggest concern about you is the endorsement from that, and people here in Essex County, the endorsement from the Essex County Democratic Committee, which had the really bad idea of putting the word Inc. after their name on the ballot. It's not a good look. So what do you say to people who maybe are afraid that you're too mainstream for their taste, that you're too moderate, and they want more of a progressive? And the proof of this is your endorsement of the machine, which some people consider to be undemocratic.
So I've always hated labels. I know where people see me, but I think I have some very incredibly progressive values when it comes to things like abortion and civil rights and choice, and gun rights and gun safety. I'm sorry, gun safety. But I also would say that, in my first race, I did get the county line. Largely because nobody actually thought I could win that race, and they didn't really care. In fact, when I first told someone I was going to run for Congress in the 11th district, they said, well, that's okay, nobody really cares about the 11th district. And so I built that broad coalition. I've always run on building broad coalitions, on building grassroots support. It's why I'm so proud of the labor support I have, the grassroots support I have. And I did advocate for, and we did see this year in Essex County, a secret ballot. That was a secret ballot like many of the other conventions. It was open for a very long time. So as I said, I'm going to work hard to bring the Democratic Party together. I think this is going to be a really tough general election. I think we haven't seen a third term of a Democrat for 50 years now. So I want to bring everybody together. And certainly I've never been told what to do, and I don't anticipate that will change.
All right, thank you. Mayor Baraka, and we're coming to the end, so folks, if you want to think about your questions or you want to actually start to line up at the microphone, which is here in the center aisle, feel free. Mayor Baraka, during the 2022 mayoral race, you paid a consulting firm owned by your brother $77,000. At the same time, your brother was earning his full-time salary as your chief of staff at City Hall. Your wife was convicted of tax evasion related to consulting money she earned while working on your mayoral ball in 2015. So when Republicans, let's say you're the nominee and you win the primary, when Republicans start running ads 24/7 about these facts from your past, how are you going to convince voters that you're the candidate they can trust?
Well, I think they just need to look at my record and the things that we've done around progressive values in the state of New Jersey. I think they look at the things we fought for and the people we fought for in the state of New Jersey, in the city of Newark, one of the most difficult cities in this state with some of the most compounding and intractable problems. My brother has a firm where he hires people to work on campaigns. Obviously, that's going to happen. He's going to continue to do that. He's my brother. I trust him. He's loyal. He fights in the street. And he's going to continue to do that. And his company hires workers to come, and he's doing it now. Hire workers to come and work in the streets and work on our campaigns. That's going to continue to happen. My wife made a mistake when she wasn't my wife. I married her anyway, right? Because I love her. She has integrity. She probably has more integrity in her pinky than most of these people who are bringing us up in their entire body. And I would stand and fight for my wife and my brother anytime, any day of the week. And I'm proud to do that because my record is strong. And the things we not only fight for, but the things we've accomplished by reduction of crime, changing lead service lines, turning people who were in the projects for generations, making them into homeowners, right? Doing the things that were necessary in the city to improve working families' lives. So I'm ready to have this fight. I really am, especially with a guy in the White House who has 34 felonies. I'm waiting for them to try to challenge me on any of this stuff.
Thank you. Mayor Fulop.
These are very hard questions.
Yeah, but they're the last ones.
Go ahead.
I always save the nasty ones for the end.
Oh, I can't wait.
That's what a journalist does when they interview people.
Okay, great.
You might kick me out after I ask the hard question. You've said on this campaign that you're the mayor of a large city, one of the Newark and Jersey City, the two largest cities in New Jersey, that you have experience and the sort of executive experience to run state government and to do it well as you've run Jersey City. But in 2023, you ran a $90 million deficit that led to higher taxes and a credit downgrade. And then months later, there was a $21 million shortfall caused by property tax appeals that forced you to borrow more money to close the budget gap. So I've heard from people in Jersey City who are not happy about this. How can voters trust you with the state budget?
So let me start by saying that is factually not true. That is driven by a letter to the editor that Jim McGreevey, who is running for mayor, wrote recently. Our finances actually have been upgraded the majority of the time from S&P and credit rating agencies. You could check that. I would push back on that. With regards to 11 years of a budget, 7, I think 8 this year, have had flat and no tax increase. With regards to what people feel about me there, I'm the first 3-term elected mayor in 75 years in Jersey City. So somebody there is voting for me with big numbers. I ran outside of the political establishment on a platform of reform, and I'm going to go back one step further. There is nobody in New Jersey, other than Phil Murphy, that has been more scrutinized by the press than me, because Terrence McDonald, the Jersey Journal, NJ.com, was assigned to me every day for 11 years, vetting everything. There is no secrets in my life. And for 12 years, we've run a good administration. There are no surprises. You could Google anything about me. I would put our record against anybody, and I'm best prepared to fight and win in November because of that.
I love Terrence McDonald, just so you know. Love him. Great reporter. NJ Monitor, look it up. It's a really great news organization. Okay, our first question. Let me say, audience members, please get right to the question. There are a lot of folks behind you in line. I'm going to have to cut you off if you don't get right to your question. Try to boil it down. Let's hear it in 30 seconds. Please tell us who you're asking the question of and take it away.
I'm asking all the candidates, thank you for coming.
Closer.
What
Closer to the mic.
Closer? Okay.
Close to the mic.
Closer to the mic. So, what will you do as governor to ensure that the 2026 midterm congressional elections take place as scheduled if Donald Trump tries to cancel or delay them?
Okay, thank you. Let's start back at, go ahead, Mayor Fulop. Go ahead.
I'll go on that side.
No, it's fine, go.
Okay. It's a good question. Thank you. Let me start with, I outlined 3 things specifically that I think are different with regards to my approach to Donald Trump versus anybody else with regards to saying how we're going to fight. The first is that we have an Attorney General today, Matt Platkin, that has been at the forefront of litigation pushing back on the president, nationally recognized. Most people have the Attorney General as a political appointee. I'm very clear that I would give him the opportunity to stay because continuity from a litigation standpoint is very important to transparency. Secondly, I talk about we're not going to be able to cover the entirety of it, but using the state surplus to offset some of those cuts from Medicaid and for our most vulnerable communities, which is unique. And third, I am not shy about pushing hard. I got a lot of scars for it. But the reality is that Trenton needs to lead with regards to legislation that protects New Jersey people here, and we haven't done a good job of doing that. Trenton needs to be more bold, pushing the legislature from the governor's standpoint, and I will do that to protect voting rights, expand voting rights, and make sure that we are heard loud and clear.
Congressman Sherrill.
Thank you. That's a great question. I was on the floor of the House on January 6th, and when I hear people say we just have to get through 4 years, I think what leads you to believe he's leaving after 4 years? He's shown no signs of wanting to do that. So what we have to do is, I think, utilize 2025 as the organizing principle. Get everyone out. This has to be a juggernaut of election here and in Virginia so we can mobilize the Democratic Party with people across the country, show our different vision forward so that we can set the table for 26. We are going to need everybody in the streets. We are going to need everybody advocating. We are going to need...
Uh-oh.
It's Trump. He's after me. But we are going to need to ensure that as the people, we are making sure we hold these elections and hold this government accountable. But it is no sure thing.
Thank you. Let me add one more rule I forgot to mention, which is one question only per person. So, sir, if you'd like, you could sit down because you're not coming back to the mic.
I want to hear the answers, and I'm
Okay.
at that age.
Okay, thank you.
Turn my hearing
Sorry,
aids up.
stay up there, sorry. Mr. Spiller.
Well, listen, I guess it starts, we need strong people fighting for us in Congress, like Congresswoman Sherrill, staying there and helping us to win that fight, right? But look, in all seriousness, right, we need to show what we can do here in New Jersey, right? We've got to make sure that we're leading. I've often said this, Donald Trump is a bully, and he's leveraging right now all the dollars that come to our state to ask us to bend the knee to kiss the ring. We're seeing it in state by state. We're seeing it in institutions from higher ed down to small towns. Right now is the moment to say, no, this is what we can do together when we organize, mobilize, have a governor who's leading to say, I'm fighting for our residents, I'm fighting for every single one of us, I'm not dividing us, I'm not attacking us, I'm protecting us. When we do that, and he tries to tamper with our broader political system, there is an energy and a base that we can tap into to say, we need to rise up in this moment or our democracy is lost. It's as much on you as that question is on us, because we are all going to have a responsibility to make sure we protect our democracy in this moment. I'm counting on you.
I mean, first, we have to start with the premise that the Constitution of the United States doesn't allow any of this stuff. We have to start with that. We can't start from a deficit. We're always letting them define our fight. It's absolutely not allowable in the Constitution. We need to push back against this, which is why I agree that we need to have a strong attorney general that joins with other attorney generals around the country and form a pact, like universities are starting to do, form a pact to begin to push back against these things that are happening nationally. And I think they're making my point that obviously in order to have a huge number of people turn out, we're going to have to go into communities we're not used to going into. We're going to have to get people to turn out to vote who don't think that the votes represent them or candidates represent them. We have to go into these communities and encourage people to come out and vote in large numbers, and I think that we have the ability to do that.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my question is for all of the candidates. Governor and First Lady Murphy have made it a priority to make New Jersey a safe place to give birth, especially for Black women. And we know that most women die after 6 weeks postpartum. So how will you keep Black women and Black mothers and Black birthing people safe in the postpartum period?
Thank you. Who wants to go first? Anybody? Congresswoman?
Maybe as the only person who's been through that postpartum period, I'll take a stab at it. So that's exactly right. We know that Black women die at 7 times the rate of white women. We also know that in the first year of life, Black children die at 3 times the rate of white children here in New Jersey. So we have to have continuing medical education for doctors who treat them to make sure that they are culturally competent. We have to get more people from all of our communities into midwife, doula, and medical professional programs. I agree and would support the governor's plan to have Medicaid pay for doulas for women giving birth, but also that first year of life is critically important, and it's critically important for mothers. For those of us who've been through it, you go through a million different doctor's appointments. You're there every day, it seems like, and then suddenly you give birth and it's over. And you're not even in the hospital, your doctor disappears. Your OB, who you've been with for months, suddenly is nowhere to be found, and you're sitting there with a pediatrician who only wants to know about the baby. And if it's your first kid especially, you are just clueless. I mean, changing a diaper, breastfeeding, it's all just completely overwhelming, and that's when so many women start to feel lost. So that's why we need to continue the medical monitoring after birth into that first year of life, making sure you have the connection, making sure that you are continuing to be checked on with telemedicine and remote monitoring, making sure you have access to diapers and formula, and yes, a stroller, just so you can get outside once in a while. All of this has to continue to be taken care of after you give birth, as you so clearly pointed out, because that is a very fragile time for many new mothers, and we know we can have better outcomes if we continue to monitor and have them in the healthcare profession. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll just briefly say this. Governor Murphy, First Lady have done a great job in terms of trying to improve overall maternal health, right? And certainly the impacts, though, when we look at it, and the question was around the disparity that exists for Black mothers, right? So let's be clear. I appreciate all of these things are important, but for Black mothers right now, what's happening is their doctors are not listening to them. They're not listening to the concerns that they bring forward. They're dismissing them. They don't understand what they're hearing. They don't relate to what they're hearing, and that's leading to a consequence. It's leading to a consequence where that pregnancy has a worse outcome, probability of a worse outcome for a Black mother than it does someone else. So yes, we've got to have cultural competency. We've got to make sure we've got the training that's there so folks understand the biases that they have and that they bring forward. We've got to have all of those wraparound services that are there to try and provide those supports. That's important, but it's understanding that that's not enough if we don't get to the root of the problem, because what we're seeing is even when we address that, we may improve outcomes for white women, but we haven't improved them for women of color. So we've got to address it at the core. That's how we make a difference in the disparity that exists. We change the system.
Mayor.
It's clearly cultural incompetence that's happening in these hospitals. These doctors and other folks that are in the hospital believe that black women can endure more pain than anybody else. They believe they have a higher threshold of pain. They believe that when they tell them something that it's not necessarily the truth, that they're over-complaining and talking too much. This idea of big, strong black women is getting women killed in hospitals. And so there needs to be a committee of women statewide, mostly populated by black and brown women who are helping to make policy around these hospitals and these doctors, period. We need to make Medicaid and Medicare pay for midwives and doulas right away and allow them to go into hospitals alongside of mothers while they're in those hospitals together. The state has to be more responsible in this because this gap is huge in one of the most wealthy states in the nation, which means that this inequity should not be taking place because black women are dying no matter where they live or no matter their economic status. They can live in Milburn or Newark or South Orange or Maplewood or Gloucester County in Bridgeton. The outcomes are the same because racism is the same all over the state of New Jersey.
Thank you. Mayor Fulop.
I think a lot of good ideas were said. I think midwives and doulas are important. I think education is important. At the core of the healthcare issue here in New Jersey, which disproportionately impacts minorities, is the fact that Horizon has an absolute monopoly on your healthcare system here. If you're not willing to address the fact that Horizon has massive control here, nothing will change. Horizon, ironically, is actually in partnership with a unique phenomenon in New Jersey that you have these hospitals consolidating and gobbling up doctors and controlling your outcome because they're no longer allowing insurance to reimburse those doctors the same way. When you have areas in the state that have poorer economics, less educated population, and less ability to push back on those hospitals and Horizon, the outcomes are going to be bad, clear as day. You need to be bold and actually address the fact that the insurance companies and the hospital systems are at the core of the issue.
Okay. Next question, please.
Thanks for being here this evening. Homelessness is exploding. Do any of you, by show of hands, know what the GA, aka welfare, amount is? It's standard throughout New Jersey for a dependent, for an adult without dependents. Do you know that amount?
Say that again, I apologize.
The GA, the General Assistance, which was commonly known as welfare, do you know that amount?
Of what one person would get per month?
Correct.
Does anyone know the answer?
Can you say the whole question? I apologize. I was just
it.
thinking about the last thing. It's still blowing in my mind over here.
I just wanted to know if people knew how much people were getting if they didn't have kids on general assistance. So I thought that that might be the case, and I'd suggest doing homework and or showing up at the agencies where these people are spending hours and hours of time struggling to get benefits, struggling on many fronts. The amount is $185 a month. And there's an affluent naivete, if not a willful ignorance, and I just hope that we can address that statewide and to make, sorry? The GA, the General Assistance
So this is for adults with no children who are not,
those who are disabled can receive $277. So that's a monthly amount. There may be additional with SNAP or food benefits, but you see that that's not an amount to live on. So I just want to bring that to your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
Thank you. Okay, I speak loudly anyway. There's a long-term health care crisis in New Jersey. Do you support changing Medicaid laws in New Jersey so families are not rendered broke in order to qualify for Medicaid as other states have changed their laws?
Yes.
Yeah.
One. Yep.
Yes.
How and what will you do so that families that are suffering and taking care of a spouse who is incredibly ill are not rendered broke.
Okay, let's
I
get the
think
answer.
I think we need to have a single payer system. We need to begin talking about public options and Medicare for all in New Jersey. It is you paying a deductible plus the copay plus insurance is too much. I know people are afraid to do that, but in a crisis, if people are taking money from Medicaid, we have to figure out how to expand that, not run away from it. So we need to figure out what a public option looks like. I do want to say something else. I apologize because it's bothering me that, black women in Maplewood and South Orange are educated, I would imagine, right? And have a higher level and opportunity of education than folks in other cities, but they're still dying in these hospitals, right? And so we gotta stop saying that. You know what that bothers me? Because my wife, the one she claimed, accused of being a criminal, my wife, when she went to the hospital when she was pregnant, cried all the way in the hospital because the baby was breached. I thought I did something wrong, right? I was like, what the hell did I do? And finally she said the baby's breached, and she felt like maybe she would not make it out or the baby wouldn't make it out. It's problematic, and we can't keep addressing this just economically without talking about the real racial disparities in the state.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's go back to the Medicaid question. Is there anyone at the table who doesn't agree with the premise of the question that there's a problem that needs to be fixed? Okay, so how are we going to fix the problem? Who wants to speak on that hasn't spoken yet?
Well, listen, I think it starts also with the fact that right now it makes you spend down your dollars, right? Spend down your life savings, right, to qualify and get the funding that you need, right? And that's what I agree with you, right? So right now, right, we've got to change that policy to say, why are we forcing that, right? Forcing you to go into poverty when we know that's a problem. When we know there are additional supports we can have to have at-home care, right? Often leading to better outcomes because we know the person who's doing a lot of the care is somebody who cares for them, but we see the barriers and obstacles that are put in place for at-home care versus care at a center or someplace else, right? So we've got to change these rules around making sure we allow better access for people who are doing that care, the dollars they receive at home. We have to change the rules around having you spend down all of your lifetime of savings right before you qualify for the services that you need. By doing those two main things, we protect a little bit of that nest egg that you'll continue to need, and certainly allow the folks doing the care, getting the better outcomes, receiving the dollars they need to do the work as well.
Thank you. Mayor Fulop?
I agree also with a single payer option and Medicare for all, but I think if I'm being fair and honest with the conversation, New Jersey's at a place where we're at risk for billions of dollars of Medicaid cuts from this federal government, and we don't know what that will look like today. I would be disingenuous if I told you today that I could expand it in a different direction, even though I believe that to be the right thing. But I think the realistic step that we are at today is to understand from a budgetary standpoint, where are we with Washington today, and what types of things do we need to be doing from a surplus standpoint to confront that in a responsible way. I agree with you that nobody should go broke, and we do need to explore that, but I didn't want to tell you something that I didn't think I actually could execute on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the state needs to expand. We have some of the lowest reimbursable rates in Medicaid in the nation, so we need to expand that. But I have to agree, right now we don't know what kind of cuts we're getting federally. The House Republicans passed $880 billion in cuts from Medicaid. I don't think it'll be that deep, but we don't know how deep it will be at this time, which is why I'm a huge advocate for suing the federal government, clawing back the federal funding so we can reimburse people at a state plan here.
Okay, next question, please.
So this morning I read a story about an an attorney in Texas who was providing pro bono immigration services. Later that afternoon, he was visited by 2 ICE officers accusing him of interfering with an immigration investigation. And Trump has made no secret that he is willing to use federal agencies and law enforcement, National Guard, whatsoever, to basically trample people's rights and their attempts to exercise their constitutional rights and the attempts of others to help people exercise their constitutional rights. So what is your plan to either put a leash on the federal government or protect us from federal forces or agencies coming in and preventing us from being able to exercise our rights?
Well, I'll say this as an immigrant myself, right? Watching as he's right now threatening folks who are going through the naturalization process, where God forbid they say the wrong thing and he pulls it away, or he's scaring our kids by sending armed ICE agents into our classrooms as well as our places of worship, or we're seeing right now where he's trying to divide us and threaten folks, right? Rounding people up, right, who've served in our military, who are U.S. citizens, right? All of us should be worried right now because this is about every single one of us. It's not about someone else. This is him coming after us and trying to change who we are. And his actions are not who we are, right? So for me, it's about, as governor, standing up with a strong attorney general fighting in the courts to protect and stand up for New Jersey laws, yes. It's using executive orders as governor to make sure I'm reacting quickly to what he does at the federal level. It's making sure that we are not cooperating with ICE, right? Providing information and details that is then used against our citizens. It's getting the Immigrant Trust Act signed into law. It should be signed before I get there, right? But getting that signed into law, right? These are tangible things that can be done and that I will do to help protect all New Jersey residents because it's an issue for all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree that the Immigrant Trust Act should be passed immediately and unequivocally. I mean, there are things that people will say we want to do and we should do, but they're not going to go far enough to get it done. I think this is the moment to push as far as we can on everything. Now, we can't pick and choose which things we want to be progressive about and which things we don't want to be progressive about. We have to do as much as we can in the time period that we can do it in. We also have to protect folks like that. I think that the state, not just the AG, but the state needs a fund where we're hiring lawyers or using lawyers from community-based organizations that are defending people like that, but also defending teachers and professors, defending people with with visas and student visas and green cards, defending people who are being kidnapped on the street. We have to defend the citizens of the state of New Jersey and partner with other states around the country to build a block of folks that lean on each other when we find ourselves in these issues and problems.
Before you start, Mayor Fulop, we are out of time, so we're not going to take more questions. I'm sorry. I know that's terrible, but I didn't want you standing there and then me tell you. I was sitting here like, oh. So I'm sorry, and now let's continue and we'll finish up.
Let's go to the same question.
Yep.
I don't think there is a mayor or an executive in the state of New Jersey that has the same experience with immigration that I do. I told you earlier that I come from a family of immigrants. I told you my dad had a deli. My mom had an immigration services business my entire life in Newark, New Jersey, helping people get immigration. In 2013, when I was elected, I established the first immigration affairs office that's nationally accredited in the country in a municipal building in City Hall. It still exists today, helping thousands of people. Jersey City was at the forefront of the resettlement program for refugees from Afghanistan and Ukraine. And during COVID, when the state or federal government wouldn't help undocumented people with money, we took the burden of responsibility in Jersey City to make sure that we were supplying and raising funds to make sure that those people had what they needed. My track record is second to none on this. I tell you that I've been unapologetic as supporter of the Immigrant Trust Act. I think it's extremely important. But I think the governor also needs to be bold. At this moment in time, with this U.S. Attorney, Alina Habba, is saying that we're threatening around immigration, it is the actual moment that Governor Murphy should be pushing for the Immigrant Trust Act to send a message to Donald Trump that this is who we are. I also think that from a budgetary standpoint, that there are tons of nonprofits in New Jersey that deal with immigration legally, that help documented people that are here, helping them with services, connecting them, that have seen their funding dried up entirely because of the conversation. And Trenton needs to be more bold, stepping in and saying, we will help those because these people are important to our community.
So I think what's going on now isn't just dangerous to immigrants or visa holders. I think this is dangerous for all of us. I think Trump is an existential threat to our democracy. It's why I impeached him in my first term, leading a group of national security Democrats to call for an impeachment. It's why I called for Biden to step down because I didn't think he could defeat him. It's why I continue to fight hard to stand against him today. And I have to tell you that I have served overseas in places where I have seen democracies fall, where I have seen how this looks, where I've seen people being picked up in the middle of the night and disappeared. I've seen exactly what it looks like when you can't even speak out against the person in power. And maybe we've forgotten something here, but many of us grew up during the Cold War, and we knew exactly what was going on in Russia. And so to see a president of the United States vote in the UN with Russia and North Korea is something that I never thought I'd see. And so that's why we have to fight incredibly hard here. We have to come together. The way he wins is when he divides us. But make no mistake, this doesn't end with simply picking up certain people off the street. This ends with picking up U.S. citizens who are going against the government to imprison them. That's where this ends. And I have to tell you, if you think I don't really feel this deeply despite what I just told you, I was just speaking to a group who was asking about immigrant rights, and I was talking about the story of a friend who came and said, look, I'm afraid to travel outside the U.S. despite the fact that I have a U.S. passport. And I told that story in vague terms because I'm afraid if I tell details of that story, the President of the United States might come after that person.
Okay,
so
time.
This is where we are.
Okay, so you all have a minute and a half to give closing statements. I have been told that there were many people in line who want to hear how you're going to fix transportation in the state, and I assume New Jersey train travel is tops on the list. So if you can work that into your minute and a half, but fair enough. We told you you could give prepared remarks at this point, so I understand if you can't. But let's start at the other end, Congressman Sherrill.
Well, I'd love to address transportation. I have actually in Congress been called the tunnel-obsessed Congresswoman because even when it looked like Gateway was never going to happen and people were saying, oh, ARC already failed, don't even go for it, I was advocating incredibly strongly. And that's why I'm so pleased that we were able to get the funding for the Gateway Tunnel. I do worry about it going forward. I worry about the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, where we are building infrastructure here. And I will tell you the reason I'm so focused on it is because I hear about it all of the time. I'm happy to talk about the rest of the state, but since we're in North Jersey today, I will talk about the Gateway because we all know how incredibly important it is to people that whether or not you make it home for dinner or if you can even coach soccer, even though my husband's friends say, you know, my kids were blessed that he couldn't make it home in time to coach soccer. I thought it would have been nice. But this is what it means to people's lifestyle here. So that's why we have to get funding. I got funding for the catenary wires, so we hopefully won't see yet another summer of hell this summer and continue. I see a commuter, and continue to push into that. And then beyond that, we need to continue to look at the infrastructure across the state and make sure, as governor, I am going to develop a statewide plan so we can build out the housing we need. We can build out the infrastructure and transportation we need. Many of our lines are from the 1800s. We need to make sure we're re-envisioning how we move people across the state. We can build out the power of the future with clean, green power, which is cheaper. Solar is the cheapest form of power that we have right now. Driving down costs and really building a healthcare system that works for everyone and isn't a one-way ticket into poverty if you get sick. So thank you all so much. I'd love for you to go to MikieSherrill.com and look further into my affordability agenda, and I'd love to earn your support and your vote. Thank you again.
Thank you. Mayor.
I'm going to take my entire time to talk about transportation. Our campaign is about political reform and being bold, and transportation is at the core part of that. And I know a thing or two about this because I changed transportation in Jersey City. We built the largest microtransit system in the country. It's done 2.5 million rides serving underserved areas of Jersey City, predominantly minority neighborhoods. We built the largest bike share program in the state of New Jersey, the largest protected bike lanes. We were the first in Vision Zero. I am in the ferry business, unfortunately, but I know a thing or two about it. I know the first thing we rolled out was a transportation plan because it's about being bold. I say on day one, there are things that I will do to drastically reform transportation in the state of New Jersey. First, I was the first one to be in opposition to the silly turnpike widening project in Hudson County. It is a $12 billion project that you all pay for to alleviate congestion going into the Holland Tunnel, and it's so stupid because it doesn't matter if you have 25 lanes, you're not going to alleviate congestion because the Holland Tunnel is still 2 lanes. So let's just take a step back. Secondly, I tell you that I was the only one that said congestion pricing is a good thing. People that are fighting against congestion pricing, People that are fighting against congestion pricing are fighting against something that's good for health, for the environment. And you ask yourself, what is the person that drives their personal vehicle to Midtown Manhattan every single day and pays $2,000 to park in Midtown at a garage? Is it a regular working class person or not? Regular people take the buses and the trains, and we need to invest in that. I talk all the time about revamping the corporate business tax that we started on last year to fund New Jersey Transit. You cannot bond against a 5-year revenue, and that is wrong. You need to modernize those stations. And then finally, New Jersey Transit. I talk often about the fact that it's privatized 20 years ago. It is counter to the interests of the mission of moving people around with regards to having a private entity operate that. It's not the way public transit should work, and we would change that. Our campaign is different. Please visit www.stephenfulop.com. Thank you.
Thank you. You got to let him. You started it, so you have to let him do it. Now I'm gonna do it.
Okay, fine.
But look, the reality is, I agree with most of the stuff that was said. In fact, most of us agree with a lot of the things that was said up here. When we start talking about transportation, in my mind, I represent people who the 15% fare increase on New Jersey Transit is not a matter of them coming home late. This is a matter of them being able to buy a Christmas gift for their child, a birthday present for their child, or hold their rent. This is very serious. This is not, the way we view this is not how everybody view it. And we govern often from our perspective, and we see very few of the people in New Jersey, and not all of us in this state. We don't see working class families, though we're supposed to represent working class families in the state of New Jersey. Yeah, we need to expand transit. Yeah, we need the Immigrant Trust Act. Yeah, we need to build more housing. Yeah, we need, to lower the costs on health care. But we need to go far on all of those things. We can't go far on one and halt on the other. Go far on this one and halt on the other. If you listen to what people are saying, they're very aggressive about one thing, but they pull back on the other thing. It's not the time to pull back. Now, I said a story last night that I'm going to repeat because I think is worth repeating, right? There was a picture that I used to see growing up in my household about the Little Rock Nine. And there was an African-American woman, Elizabeth Eckford was her name. If you see the picture, she's sitting at a bus stop, and there's a mob of people around her yelling and cursing and saying all kinds of racist things to her as she sat there because she wants to integrate public school system, right? And all this time, I missed the real part of that picture. There was a middle-aged white woman in a checkered outfit who had her arm around Elizabeth Eckford. That lady's name was Grace Lorch. Most people don't know about Grace Lorch. She went on the bus with Elizabeth Eckford. She stopped 2 teenagers from getting on the bus and pushed them off the bus as well. She rode with her to her home, and because of that, they published her name and her address in the paper, and the White Citizens Council harassed her and her husband for the rest of their life. And I'm saying this because we like to do the normal thing, the thing that feels good, the thing that's comfortable. Not Grace. She did what was uncomfortable. She did something that was against what the popular people were doing, what the bosses were saying, what the party was saying, what the folks in the community were saying. She did something completely different. She sacrificed herself for the greater good of everybody else. And the problem with our state is we like the things that benefit us, but we refuse to sacrifice our privilege for the rest of the people in this state. And because we don't do that, we cannot advance economically, we cannot advance socially, and we cannot advance politically. This is a moment. This is our moment right now. Now, you can do what you normally do, and you're going to get what you normally get. If you think you're going to beat Republicans doing the same thing you've done that almost got you to lose to them in this state, then we deserve to lose. But if you got a little courage, a little backbone, a little spirit, a little something in your gut, then you'll fight. You'll fight and you'll do something different than what's normally being done, because that is the only way we win. If you don't take the shot, you absolutely cannot score. I say take the shot in June, and damn it, take it again in November. And we win this race. We don't have to worry about what Republicans or independents win. We will win because we're going to fight and we stand on what's right.
Thank you.
You know, when we talk about transportation, and folks asked us to address that, I agree, right? We need a transportation master plan. I think that's got to include more transit in South Jersey. That means light rail and expanding it, because conversations down there are, we don't even have it. Conversations here, we've got to make sure it's more affordable, reliable, safe, and these are things that we got to work on, including, though, when we talk about congestion pricing. Because, yeah, there is still that nurse who's got to get to the hospital off hours and is getting hit by that fee. There's still that firefighter who goes in. There's still that teacher who's got to get to class early, right? And so we've got to talk about this in the context of helping working class people as well. We can't lose that. So there's plans for all of these things, and they're all important, yes. But I want to leave you with this. We can talk about the plans all day long. And quite frankly, I know I'm surrounded by good people here who are all running for the right reasons. But at the end of the day, if we don't change systems, we will get what we always get. And if we're looking for bold change, that is the moment right now to do something different. Because I can tell you, I agree, right? A lot of pushing back against Donald Trump, fighting to make New Jersey more affordable, focusing on the working class, those are the issues that matter. But at the end of the day, even good people, when they're beholden to the big dollars that get them there, when they're beholden to the political systems that push them in, when they're beholden to the same things that we've always done for election after election after election, we do get those same outcomes. We absolutely get some differences, a shift here or there, but we don't get that bold distinction that allows residents in this state, and quite frankly in the nation, to say, this is the difference between electing Sean Spiller and a Democrat versus electing a Republican, because they don't see it. They don't feel it. It doesn't trickle to them because we always think it's going to somehow get there. We don't take the bold steps because when that moment is about to happen and they're about to make that decision, that political boss makes the phone call or that big developer reaches out. We can't expect to get housing that's affordable when big developers fund and support candidates. We can't expect, to change political systems when we've got political bosses who still control it. We can't expect that we're going to get changes in healthcare when it's the healthcare industry that gets people in office. We've got to change systems, and this is our chance, folks, to do it differently at the core, to elect somebody who's going to be fighting for us in everything that I do. And I truly believe this is our moment to fundamentally change the systems to make it work for us and not them. So thank you so much. That's why I asked you.
And thank you to all four of you. It's great to have you in our town. And I'm sorry I ran late, and good night, everybody.